July 23, 2021. Guys, this is part 3 of the Great Comet, and got a lot of people that want to see the end of this, and don't blame them. It just took a little more time to do it, and I have a lot of other things going on the last few days. But a lot of things happened during this particular event that were very interesting to me. Remember the ships in the information that we're reading in the first 2 chapters of this, or the first 2 parts, the Chinese Navy, these super fleets, this fleet had left Auckland, which is right there, guys. They left Auckland. They headed north towards New Zealand. One of the scouts or someone in the fleet recognized that they were quickly approaching the Snare Islands, which is south of New Zealand here. You got the Western Chain and Northeast Island here. Now, when they saw that, they were close enough to where half of the ships, or part of the fleet called the Western Fleet, turned left, or to the left of this image, or to the west of this blue spot where the islands are. Right beside this is where the comet impacted the ocean. Now, the other part of the fleet, which is called the East Fleet, they went around to the right of the Snare Island chain. And so that's what we're going to cover in the video. You've got, again, the Eastern Fleet that went around the Snare Islands this way, the Western Fleet this way. Now, as they got further along in their journey, behind them by, I think, around 80 or 90 miles, the comet hit. And when that happened, guys, you had an outward radial tsunami and wind. So your fleet that was on the right here was blown up into New Zealand. The fleet that was on the left was blown further into Australia. Imagine 700-foot waves traveling at 500 miles an hour, 400-mile-per-hour wind that was superheated, burning the sails, burning the sailors, burning the ships. 60 wrecks have been identified out of this entire ordeal. Most of them probably are under the sea. You're talking about 80 miles away from, or south of New Zealand from the impact point. And but there's enough evidence of Chinese ships all along Australia and especially New Zealand to show that this event happened. So as the ships, again, separated around the Snare Island chain here, which is very close to where the Malahika crater is, that where the comet hit, we had first the eastern chain that was blown up into Stewart Island and into New Zealand. Remember in the other video we pulled this up and showed some actual aerial photographs of how these sand dunes here had actually been washed over these 500-foot hills. Check that out. It takes a 700-foot tsunami to do that. It's all along that area. Very clear indications that it was not wind blown, that it was water. Think about that wave. And remember, many people moved inland after this time. But we got first, again, the Eastern Fleet. Now, in the Eastern Fleet, again, let me clear this up. There were 60 ships in the Eastern Fleet, and then you had the Western Fleet. But the Eastern Fleet was scattered from the Catlins, which is right here. This is the southeast corner of New Zealand. They went all the way up into what's called Dunedin now. The tsunami washed over this entire bay that you're looking at, deposited ships both in the bay and onland. It went up to Christchurch, all the way into this area. Let's see, pull this up. Right here, this peninsula is mentioned, the Banks Peninsula, as having impacts. So as we, again, here's Christchurch right here. We back that out. That's telling us, and I'll read about it, the ships were scattered along here, the Catlins and Dunedin, and all the way up to Christchurch along this section of New Zealand. Now, as far as this particular section, it says the tsunami was 700 feet at Stewart Island, which is right here at the southern edge, and it would have carried them east of Stewart Island and either onto the Catlins or to seaward east of them. The northwest tornado winds would then have dumped them to seaward on shore. The position of each wreck in the group is compatible with both tsunami and the tornado winds, which, but I'm not sure why they titled it that. They were very strong, more like Cat 10 hurricane, but created by the Oumuamua comet. Now, the first details are about Dunedin after the Catlin area, but it overwashed what is now modern-day Dunedin here in the southeast central part of New Zealand. You got the volcanoes in there, but it overwashed the port. Says the tsunami approaching Dunedin would have been of significant height to carry the junks over the top of what is now the port area of Dunedin. And I've got comments from all of this area, Australia, New Zealand, since we started this project, guys, and a lot of people have talked about these certain areas. So maybe if you're there and you're not under lockdown, you may can actually go and visit some of these sites. Sometimes in the cliffs, they say after a rain or weathering, you'll see cannonballs fall out or cannons, and you know these ships were launched up into the high cliffs. All of these patterns they say are consistent with the pattern of the Malika Comet impact crater. And again, the Cedric Bell is mentioned here. He's the surveyor, marine surveyor, that came in and found these wrecks. And he's got a book that lists the longitude and latitude of where he found them. You can't get much better evidence than that. Now we're going to move up south, just southeast of Christchurch, and this is called Banks Peninsula that goes out right here. It looks like ancient volcano area, but here's Christchurch. It was hit with that devastating earthquake years ago. Now, the wrecks were found on the southeast and north coast of the peninsula, here in the south, the east, and the north sections. For years, it was a great puzzle to him. Then, however, the solution became clear when studying a great circle map of the South Pacific between the Malika Comet impact position and the Banks Peninsula. This is an interesting part to me because I said more than likely large numbers of this fleet, the ships, are under the ocean, what's left of them. It says, in this position, the tsunami run-up would have followed the line of the continental shelf curving to the northwest, dumping the ships onto and around the Banks Peninsula. Wrecked junks would be approaching from the south. Then as the tsunami hurtled northeastwards and was level with Banks Peninsula, the junks would be approaching the peninsula from the east or to the right of this image. When the tsunamis were north of the peninsula, the run-up would push them northwest on shore. Once again, all the wrecks found by Cedric Bell around the Banks Peninsula are comparable with the Malika Comet and the resulting tsunami. But guys, this when they were talking about running up on this continental shelf, imagine a tsunami. It's extremely powerful, but most of it's underwater till it gets close to shore, just like any other wave. And then when it gets shallow, I think around 30 fathoms is what that continental shelf rises up to. Then that wave becomes a giant, massive wave of destruction, basically, is what you would call it. Now, the Western Fleet, guys, was blown to the left up through towards Australia in that area. Now, nothing is mentioned about Tasmania, but I don't know if it's hard to explore there, just such rocky formations. I really don't know, but nothing is really mentioned in Tasmania. But you get into the Bass Strait. Wrecks were found here. Here at Warrnambool, guys, you know where that's at on the southern coast there, Dennington, Belfast Coastal Reserve Plain. And let me say this, if you guys ever get a chance to go and see some of this, please take some pictures and let us know about it. We'll put them on the website. And with permission, we'll actually do a video with some of these wrecks if you get a chance to do it. Then let's move up the east coast, Sydney, Australia, right here, guys. Wrecks found in this area. You got Botany Bay in the area, Cornell. Now, the Mr. Bell, the marine surveyor, has a book out. I'll link to it that's got the actual GPS coordinates on it. That goes into great detail. I'll let you read that for yourself. If you're interested in it, you can go and, again, follow the link to Cedric Bell's book. And if you leave Sydney and move north towards Brisbane, you've got Byron Bay, guys, right here in this area, Byron Bay, right there. And ships were found washed up this far north along the shore. Now, I almost left one area out between Sydney and Brisbane, guys, and it is Newcastle. You've got Fort Scratchley here. Again, in the Newcastle area, ships were washed up here. You got the lighthouse. I'm not sure the exact locations. They're not listed in this article. Again, you'd have to get that book. But if you live in Australia or New Zealand, it may be a worthwhile project. It could be very interesting if you're a history buff. There's probably more of these. Those are the ones that they found, but that was to prove this impact and the tsunami. It says the southwest tip of Australia is on a great circle route from the Mahika impact position. Very old, unidentified wooden wrecks have been reported near the Blackwood River estuary, a kilometer inland, as well as on the seabed and near Perth. The wreck near the Blackwood River was described as Chinese. The tsunami would have followed the 100-fathom line, so all wrecks are consistent with the Mahika comet and resulting tsunami. The summary of Mr. Gavin Menzies, who wrote this on July 14, 2005, said some of these 173 wrecks, again the 60 were in the East Fleet, will turn out to be earlier or later than Zhuman's fleet, others not Chinese. What is arguable is that the wrecks are either directly on or nearly on a direct circle path from the Mahika impact site, and each of the 173 wrecks is compatible with it being cast ashore by the comet, the resulting tsunami and tornado. There's only one point in the ocean which could be responsible for the catastrophic events which caused the 173 wrecks, and the point is 48 degrees, 18 south, 160 degrees, 44 east. In my view, Dallas Abbott and his colleagues Stephen Pecker and Andrew Matson and Professor Bryant are fully vindicated, as is Cedric Bell. So, guys, there's more information about this if you dig a little deeper. And, again, I'll link to Cedric Bell's book in the description below. But I just wanted to come in and do this. I would want to know if those wrecks were close enough to me to where I could go and check it out and see what evidence I could find. But guys, I appreciate you watching all 3 of this Great Comet series. It's a heads up. Be safe.